What is up, everybody? Welcome into 21 Questions, a podcast where we answer subscriber questions, maybe 21 of them, maybe 50 of them, who knows? But 21 questions, good ballpark number. It's my first time in a while being back on the 21 Questions grind, and I'm here with Maddie Lane, who's been on the 21 Questions grind. Maddie, you've been on several grinds recently. You're tweeting out, interior defensive line highlights during opening day, which I loved. Great brand. How are you doing today, Maddie?
Opening day of what? It's called the Masters. What are we talking about?
Right, yeah. Opening day of the Masters is what it was.
Okay. I was just trying to make sure we were on the same page here because I don't know what
Yeah,
else opened today. This is a pro peanut butter and jelly sandwich podcast.
it
That's
is.
not really going to mean a lot to a lot of people out there, but if you're married, probably a guy, but maybe women too. If you're married and your significant other's out of town, or serious relationship, that significant other's out of town, 9 times out of 10, you're eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that night. We all know that
Mm,
feeling. That's what Tucker was up to right as we got on this call. So,
yeah,
it is what it is. Pro peanut butter and jelly podcast. Don't know what opening day it is. Let's get to 21 questions before I talk too much and we have to only answer 18 of them.
that's true. Before we started this podcast, I had to restart the intro like 3 times because I had too much peanut butter on my peanut butter jelly sandwiches. But neither nor there. Nick, this first question is from him. In the recent mock draft, there was a discussion about trading up, but none about trading down. What value/return would you look for at 30 after selecting Ojaba at 29? Maddie, this seems like a question perfectly curated for you.
I'm not a fan of trading down. I don't think, especially in the Chiefs' position for this draft class. I don't love a lot of the positional pockets that you're going to see in round 2 at cornerback or edge. Really, I think you're kind of on the outskirts of corner, edge, and probably wide receiver. When you're sitting there at 29 and 30, you're getting the last couple guys you hope at all those positions. Trading back from there doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, especially if you're just trying to pick up more day 2 capital when you already have 4 other picks on day 2. How many guys are you really going to fit on your team? I get it if there's no one there that you want. I fully understand the concept, but I don't know if I would want to chase doing that just because, like I said, I think there's a pretty big drop off after kind of where the Chiefs are going to pick at the positions that they're going to want. So I wouldn't want to trade for them and try to make it up on the second day.
I'm with that as well. And we've seen some trends in the 5 year. Well, this will be the 5th year that Brett Veach drafts, but in the 4 years that Brett Veach has drafted, we've seen him not ever trade down. We've seen him not take corners in the first round. Do I think that those two things will change this year? Probably not. Maybe one more than the other. I think corner has a bigger possibility of happening than trading down. But it's an interesting thing to think about with these selections coming up into the draft. And don't forget, we'll be at the Kingdom Bar and Grill hanging out there. Maddie's going to be in town too, so you got to make it out to the Kingdom Bar and Grill where we're going to be doing the live draft show all 3 days of the draft. I won't be there day 3. I have a wedding to be in. But I'll be there day 1, day 2. We're going to be live streaming the whole time. So if you can't make it, if you're out of state, then you catch us on the stream. If you're in Kansas City, if you're in the area, please make it out to the Kingdom Bar and Grill. We're gonna have drink specials. I believe there's even some specials in the draft guide. If you buy the draft guide, you get a little special. I don't know. I've heard rumors, but I think that's another reason you should buy the draft guide. But let's get into this next question here from Mike Denny. Who do you think the Raiders reach for in the first round of the draft? I mean, it's an annual tradition unlike any other. The Masters starting this week, a great tradition, and the Raiders reaching for somebody in the first round. Who specifically do they reach for? I don't know. I can see them drafting wait, Maddie, what pick do they have?
That's what I was researching. The Raiders don't have a first round pick. So to see them reach for a player in the first round would be phenomenal because they're going to be trading. They're going to be trading 2023 assets, maybe 2024 assets to get up there. I mean, their first pick is pick 86. 86. So the only way they're touching the first round is a lot of capital. So I hope they do it, and then I hope they go draft
Chad Muma.
Oh yeah, that'd be a great one. Do it. Yeah,
That was the first. That was nothing against Chad. I like Chad Muma though. That's the thing is I like him, but I see that's a guy that they would draft in the first round. I don't know why. I just see him as I think the Raiders could pick him at 18 overall. And that's
that'd be glorious.
That just seems like a very Raiders move to happen. Next question we got here. Christian Gumminger, he asked, are you excited for Tyreek to bang the drum during the AFC divisional round? It's not like he'll be busy that weekend. I believe this is a rhetorical question, but a very good question indeed.
I think that would be a huge flex by the Chiefs. That would be hilarious. Obviously, he would never do it, but I like the proposal. I think they should send out the invite, especially if people are reading into the situation correctly and think that he kind of wanted out. Maybe not everybody was meshing at that point in time. Like if that's the case, then yeah, send out the invite, even though he'll obviously turn it down.
That would just that's an awkward situation. I don't. I wouldn't like that actually. I like to avoid awkward situations as much as possible. When in the office when Scott's Tots comes on, that episode immediately gets skipped. Too awkward for me to handle. Grayson Jaspers. Next question. He asked, "How many players currently on the roster are a lock to make the team?" Maddie,
Oh God, that requires me to have the roster up, and
right?
anybody that knows anything about me that has followed us knows that I absolutely positively don't prep for these Q&A shows whatsoever.
Off the dome, all off
How
the
many
dome.
people are on this roster right now? How many do we think are going to make it? Okay, well, you're going to have 11, 22. We'll go ahead and double that, 44. I say you got 44 guys that are a lock, 40 guys that are a lock to make this roster right now. So I'm giving you 13 extra players right now that are in flux, and I'm not going to give any names. This whole podcast doesn't need to be me reading off the depth chart to try to figure out what positions may be up for grabs. So it's not a ton. I will say that. I think that there's
Yeah.
definitely more openings than you would like for a team heading into the draft, but more so than being at depth. I think the Chiefs have done an adequate job of adding depth through the draft and free agency the last couple of years. It's the starters. Like they have guys penciled in as starters that should be bench players, not rotational players, but bench players. Like that's where the issue that I see is.
Yeah, that's kind of been the problem this offseason. Hey, you got to pencil in the 6 spots that Dave Tope's gonna have for special teamers too. So you gotta pencil those spots in, and you know that those guys will be able to make the roster too. So Connor Christopherson, he asked, do you have a read on how much seriously training for testing events help prospects? How much time is gained by seriously training for the 40, for example? I have no read on how much training for that matters specifically. I know there's a lot of guys at Northwest Missouri State, specifically good football program up there. I know it's not to the caliber of a lot of these D1 guys or really even SEC Power 5 schools. I mean, that they're a whole different breed of athletes. But I know these guys do specifically train. There's a guy right now at Northwest who's been training for the 40 to have a lower 40 time, and it has helped. I believe he's down to a 4.3, high 4.3, but I mean, a 4.3 is a 4.3. And I think that's helped a little bit. Now, how does that translate? I think is kind of another part of the question. Is like, how can you train? You can train to be really good at a 40. Like, how does that translate on the football field? It's yet to see. Jury's still out on that one. What do you think about that, Maddie?
I think it's a huge bonus. I think that's like you're starting to see like relative athletic scores trending upwards. You get all these different really good training facilities that are taking these guys in, teaching them how to train properly. Not for football all the time. A lot of times it is just for training, and then you'll talk to them afterwards in a private setting. Like, yeah, we work on nothing that relates to football during that combine time. Like specifically, everyone's going to go to the 40 time, and that one's huge, but the short shuttle, just knowing how many steps to take and how to take them, you're cutting off a ton of time just by knowing how many steps you should take, taking the right amount of steps in the short shuttle. The vertical jump, I could probably take anybody out here right now, let them vertical jump their max, and just by talking to them over the next 5 minutes, I myself could add 3 to 4 inches to your vertical jump just by some simple instructions. And I'm not like even certified anymore. My certification to be a personal trainer has expired as I no longer do it. It's like there's plenty of benefit that can go into all that stuff. I don't know if it translates to the field, but I think you're just going to keep seeing more and more freak athletes coming out as long as the NFL is still going to value what those testing numbers are.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're gonna see people try to. I don't want to say fudge the numbers because you still have to be a good athlete to get the numbers right. They're gonna inflate their numbers a little bit to try to get drafted higher and try to get these relative athletic scores, which honestly, relative athletic score hasn't seemed to lie yet. Who would have thought you had to be a good athlete to play professional athletics?
Right.
That's
Well,
weird.
now, yeah, and I would say you're not going to go from a 4.5 athlete to a 4.3 athlete just by learning how to run the 40. Like, there's obviously clear limitations, but anybody that is in, that is considered fast, that is football fast, NFL fast, if you go train for the 40 time with somebody that knows what they're doing, yeah, you can shave off a good amount just by learning how to start, when to get your head up, what to do. So, like, there's obvious improvement that can be made, but fast is fast. It doesn't matter what your technique is or how hard you work. Fast is fast, slow is slow. There's just varying degrees of both of those, I guess.
Yeah. Anti-law lawyer. The next question he asked: we are approaching Veach's 5th draft as general manager, the same number that John Dorsey conducted for the Chiefs. It's a fun fact. If we were to give them 50-50 credit for drafting Mahomes, which one had the superior tenure? I assume this is draft only. You only have to only the draft you get to consider, Maddie. Which one do you think had a better track record?
It has to be Dorsey, but the unfair part of that is at the end of Dorsey's 5 years, what did Tyreek Hill look like? What did Travis Kelce look like compared to what they look like now, right? Like, some of these guys, we have seen them fully develop now versus we haven't seen a lot of Veach's draft picks fully develop where they're going to go. I will say, though, I think you have to give the edge to Dorsey because his hits not only are incredibly high, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Eric Fisher, even like these guys are Chris Jones. These guys are big, huge home run hits, and they play positions that matter. Like, even if you want to put Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton, Trey Smith, even Juan Thornhill, you want to put all these guys to even that same level, look at the positions they play instead. There's going to be a big gap there in just the importance to your team, I think.
Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are 2 draft picks that are hard. Like those tip the scale pretty large. I don't care how much, like you said, Matty, you put into Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. Been great productive players in their first season. Great picks, great value picks. Maybe not the traditional positional value that we would expect, but hey, Eric Fisher, that was a pick I was thinking of. People hated that pick. Remember when that came out? People hated that pick. Hindsight, pretty darn good pick for that 2013 draft. That 2013 draft was garbage. It was so bad. I look back at that every now and again and think, I don't know how the Chiefs got away with, with what they did with Eric Fisher, because I couldn't tell you the guy who got drafted after, but I don't think it wasn't any. I don't think it turned out to be nobody.
Luke Jokel is who a lot of people thought the Chiefs were going to take. But yeah, people were mad. Eric Fisher played, 8 years for the Chiefs, and 7 of them was a starting left tackle. At least 5 of them, he was above average. Like, you're going to knock getting an above average starting left tackle out of a draft. Like, I don't know. That's a good pick. And like, I get it. It was first overall, but yeah, Dorsey went for home run swings. He missed a lot doing so. He also hit some, but he also did it at positions that impact the game a ton. His style of drafting, I think, is just always going to come out on top unless Veach is, hitting 90% of his picks. And he just hasn't been at that level right now.
Right. Another draft question we got here from Seadrift24. If he falls to 30, is it smart for a team like the Chiefs to select Ojaba? A lot of Ojaba questions in the first round to have an extra year of player control on a rookie deal, since he will most likely not play this upcoming year. Maddie, you and I in the DMs have had a lot of discussions about edge rushers, and Ojaba seems like one of those guys that maybe in my mind I kind of like pencil in, like, oh, you can take him because he'll be there, and maybe he doesn't fall to 30. Maybe a team picks him before then. But what do you think about selecting him at 30? Keeping him on that rookie deal and kind of like redshirting him, so to speak?
I think it's smart. The Chiefs have a chance to take him at 30 or 29. I would not sit around and wait and hope he gets there at 50. Give me the extra year because he is going to miss a year. So give me the extra year of the control on a cheap contract, especially for a guy that's going to need some time to develop. I feel like I've talked about him quite a bit. So like, where do you stand on Ojaba? A lot of people that listen to us have heard me talk about him plenty of times. So where are you at with him right now?
So I think it is a good idea to get a guy like that. I think that, he did kind of get overshadowed a little bit by Aiden Hutchinson just being on the same defensive line as him, and Hutchinson's a beast, so it's hard not to like watch him. So it's just like one of those things where a guy who's also really good on the same defensive line is kind of gets overshadowed. I like him. I think he is a fun player. I think he is good. My only hesitation is waste. I don't want to say wasting. I don't think it's a waste of a first round pick, but you're gonna use a first round pick on a guy that's not gonna play right away. And usually with first round picks, you'd love to see them on the field making a significant impact right away, especially with 2 first-round picks. Imagine if the Chiefs could get 2 players that could impact the game right away. That would be huge. That'd be massive, and I'd really love to see that. That's my only hesitation because I do like him as a player. It is really unfortunate what happened, him tearing his Achilles in the pro day, and there was a lot of stuff going on around that or on social media where the guy just like grabbed the ball and just like kept going with the drills, and it was like so dehumanizing for people watching that, and I think that it's a weird spot to be in, but yeah, I like him, I do, but do I like him to the point where I want the Chiefs to spend a first round pick where they could get a guy who could potentially contribute right away? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm taking the risk because I'm chasing. I've seen enough of not high end pass rushers for the Kansas City
That's
Chiefs
fair. Yeah.
for a while now. It's like I'm chasing it, and maybe it's an overcorrection, but like I'm taking that risk because if he's healthy, he's going in the top 15 of this draft. Like you're
Right.
talking about him as maybe being edge 3, which is going to be a potentially a top 5 pick. That injury, I think 20 spot drop is completely fine. Like go ahead and take that swing there. But I get it. I get the hesitation. Just you have 2 first round picks for a reason. Make them work.
Michigan defense, so we'll talk about that. I mean, you're talking about you got Dax Hill, you got Hutchinson, you got Ojaba on there, Brad Hawkins even a little bit, man. That dude messed around and get in there. It's a fun defense. Just DRK, GMs say that they're looking 2 to 3 years into the future as well as tomorrow. With that in mind, what draft investments make the most sense with the Chiefs this season, knowing they're going to have 75 mil or so next offseason?
Okay, this is a loaded question.
It is.
Right. So I'm trying to process through it. Okay, I think the Chiefs might have more than that. I would be a little surprised if Chris Jones plays at a cap hit of $27 million next year because
Yes.
the Chiefs will have the leverage next year. I mean, obviously he can sit there and say he wants more money, but the Chiefs will have the leverage because there's not near as much dead cap hit, yada, yada, yada. So they could even have more, whether they restructure him or try to trade him. What big contracts will be up next year for them? I don't think anybody's going to get a ton of money next year. I mean, not that I know of off the top of my head. It's like they're going to have a lot. That's where you can start making free agency splashes. So that's when I've kind of gone back to the whole process this offseason. The Chiefs shouldn't throw away useless money this year by taking on James Bradbury's $13.5 million contract.
Right.
He's not going to be worth that. Save that money and roll it over to next year. Because, I mean, look at your team this year. Look around the AFC. Look at the NFL. It might be a tough pill to swallow, but your best shot to win the Super Bowl is a shootout in which your quarterback takes you there. There's no reason to spend $13.5 million on Bradbury when he doesn't change that equation at all. Roll money over, go buy a stud or 2 next year in free agency, go spend big next year. It doesn't have to be this year. So like with that in mind, just draft value at positions that matter. You need to get a receiver or an edge or a corner, preferably one of at least 2 of those guys in this draft class that you think can help you right now. That way next year you're trying to fill in studs around those guys and not only build, the core of your defense through free agency, kind of like they had to do in 2019.
Yeah, and looking at the question again, what draft investments make the most sense with the Chiefs this season? I think you do have to think long term in this, obviously, of thinking, all right, what are some of the positions that the league values? We know that maybe we have different valuations of what position groups matter than what Brett Veach does, but traditionally, wide receivers. That's a big group that seems to matter. There's a lot of good talent out there, wide receiver now. I'd love to see the Chiefs invest in that and really make a lot of draft investment, use a lot of maybe draft capital. I'd like to see young wide receivers. I do want to see a kind of a younger group than what we've seen in years past wide receivers. So that's kind of the investment that I think in that defensive back room too. I mean, you start to think about the investments that the Chiefs have made. They've had a high return on investment. They haven't invested a whole lot and they've got a high returns. And that's exactly what you want. That's not going to last forever though. Like that tree's going to run out eventually. So I think that if you want a sure thing at defensive back, you want to, whether it's safety or corner. When we start looking at it, we're looking at it that way. I think you've got to be able to invest in those position groups in this draft. And I think those are kind of the 2 most important positions I see them right now. I think they're pretty set. On the offensive line, really for the most part, they could invest in another tackle. I think another tackle could do them good, especially a young guy that can play right tackle, not necessarily play right away because Andrew Wiley's there. Andrew Wiley's a fine right tackle. People give him too much hate, in my opinion. I like Andrew Wiley. I'm pro Andrew Wiley, and I think along like they've invested in the linebackers, which haven't traditionally been proven to be valuable in this day and age in the NFL. And they've invested in that position. I think that those are really the two that they have. I mean, running back that they invested in, they have a first round pick there. So I think that that's kind of the two spots that I would really like to see them get younger and invest in better talent there through the draft. So, and then you're right, they're going to have a lot of space next season, and they can make some moves there and kind of almost enhance what they get. I'd like to think of what it would be, but they're going to have a lot of space, and I think that's exciting. Love to see some Brett Veach with a wide open wallet and see what he can maneuver there. So Ross Sawyer, the next question he asked is, where is the talent sweet spots in this draft, especially help for the wide receiver and defensive back groups? Maddie, what do you think about that?
Top 50. This class has kind of been, I've seen some people say it's deep, and I don't necessarily think so too much. I mean, like, maybe we're talking like, yeah, your guys that you're going to get on day 3 aren't that far away from guys you'll get late day 2. So maybe I would agree with that. But I think there's a pretty stark drop off once you get outside of that like top 50-ish range, maybe even a little bit less, especially at those two positions. When I look at mock drafts or through the rankings, like, I struggle to slot in guys at wide receiver or corner that I think either have a high floor and a moderate ceiling. So like, they're going to become a quality starter and they can do it right away, or guys that have a super high ceiling, but that aren't just complete boomer bust. Like, they could be absolutely nothing for the first year or two before they get there. And that kind of goes for corner and receiver. It gets so scheme specific at that point in time too, that you're looking for a guy that does one thing well instead of multiple things. It's like, I that's why I'm not big on the Chiefs trying to move out of those for their first 3 picks. I think are going to be huge. You can move around in those if you want to, but I would really like to see them keep at least 2 picks in the top 50, hopefully 3. And if it's only 2, hopefully it's a big trade up to get somebody that's like a top, 15 type player from the class.
I agree. I mean, I don't want to call them top heavy either, because I do think there's some good round 2, round 3 guys, especially wide receivers in this draft. Quarterback class might be a little bit more top heavy. Derek Stingley's pro day was really good. I was pretty impressed by it. I know that that's kind of off topic, but I was pretty impressed by it. I also think that last year's receiver class was better than this year's receiver class. Is that crazy for me to say?
No, I don't think so. They're just so this year's thing that it has going for the receiver groups is a lot of big X receivers, and I don't think that's been true these past few years. Like, there's been a guy or two, but then it's been a lot of people like, oh, I don't know if he can't separate. How will it play out? I think this year you have a handful of big receivers that should go in the top 50 that you feel comfortable will make it work. But I'm with you overall. I think last year's wide receiver group and then 2019 or 2020s and maybe 2019s, they all have more guys you felt more confident become wide receiver ones. This year seems like a lot of complimentary guys, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to find out. Another wide receiver question in this draft. What's up, Doc asked, why the lack of love in the media for George Pickens? Y'all are saying he should be gone by the time the Chiefs pick, but few, if any, have him mocked in the first round. I think this is a really good question. I like George Pickens a lot. He's another fun guy to watch on film. You watch him and you're like, dang, this dude's awesome. But I think it has something to do with injuries, probably the ACL, and he was an ACL, right? And he came back from fairly quickly. It happened in spring ball, and he came back and played in the national championship, which was absolutely insane.
He played like the last 2 games of the regular season too for them or something. Not much, but like he got out there.
Wild. But I think that might be the hesitation with media. I don't know. What do you think, Maddie?
Yeah, it's that. And then, you look at him and he's a big receiver that is not necessarily fast, so he doesn't always separate. He was dealing with some injuries, I think, last year in 2021 as well, or 2020 as well. Nothing significant, just other little dinged up injuries. He's been ejected from some games for being essentially too physical, being too competitive, to where he crossed the line. But like, I think you combine all those things with the narrative of he's big and can't separate. He's just a jump ball guy. And I think you get some people being a little bit more hesitant, but he follows the same rule of thumb as Derek Stingley. If you were 18 years old and dominated the SEC, then, I mean, who cares what happened the next 2 years if you're ready to go play right now? George Pickens did that as a freshman for Georgia. Derek Stingley did it at cornerback for LSU. I don't care what happened in those 2 years after that. Like, I'm drafting him essentially on that freshman film.
Yeah. He's, I don't know. I really like George Pickens. I do. Andy Nagel, he asked, does Fortson have the ability to develop into a number one tight end, or does Casey need to look in the draft for Kelsey's eventual replacement? Are there any tight ends in the draft who have physical makeup / skill sets to potentially develop close to Kelsey? Jelani Woods. That dude, I love that dude so much. He is very good and he's fun to watch play football in person. Seeing him in person and play football is a different experience than watching him on film. And I that's what I like about him. Does Fortson have the ability to develop into a number one tight end? I mean, maybe, but I don't think that that's what I think. He's better as a complementary player, if that makes sense. I think that he can thrive better not in that number one tight end role. Listen, we haven't seen him play a whole lot, right? So this is all just like me going off of the 3 games that he played well in. Was it 3 games? Something like that. It wasn't very
Like
much.
that.
Yeah, it's like he played well in those games, but if he doesn't have to shoulder the load, I like that a whole lot better than if he had to shoulder the whole load. There are some good tight ends in this draft. I do think that there are some good ones. Eventual Kelsey replacements is hard to say because I think that the Kelsey, I don't know. I don't. You can't replace Kelsey. You can't replace Tyreek Hill, you can't replace Travis Kelsey. It's going to be a by committee type thing. In the same way that you replace Tyreek. But what do you think, Maddie? Do you think that they go tight end in this draft, or what do you think?
Well, after you guys listen to this, you should hop on over to the kcsn.substack.com. I wrote a little bit about this exact thing today as you guys are listening to this on Friday here, is because I think it's one of those surprise positions the Chiefs could look at as a direct Kelsey replacement. He won't be as good. He will not be as good as Travis Kelsey, but I think Greg Dulcich out of UCLA, I've talked about him a couple times. He's got the best makeup to be Travis Kelsey like going forward. He's more of a split tight end, more of a split wide, playing in the slot, but he's willing to block. He's capable of doing it. But he has the ability to run routes to all 3 levels. And I think that's what separates him from a Jelani Woods, who I also like, from a Trey McBride, Jeremy Rucker. I think Dulcich shows the best ability to run routes to all 3 levels and then break inside, outside, streak down the field. So that's where I would go if you're looking for that. As for Jody Fortson, I get that we like him and he does some promising stuff. He's going to be 27 this year and have only played 2 years of tight end in the NFL. And he's played 1 game where he didn't get tight end 4 snaps. And that was because Blake Bell was injured. Again, we like the player, we like the flashes he showed, but right now he's on the track to maybe being a tight end 3, let alone a good tight end 2 or a tight end 1. So keep him on the roster, use him, but I don't think you can rely on him to be much more than that at 27 years old.
Zach Eisen, he asked us, who have been the biggest risers and fallers since the end of the season in this year's draft, Maddie?
Boy, Mafe has been the biggest riser. He's had probably the best process, as anybody essentially. Him and Travon Walker, I guess. But Walker, I think, was starting to get some of that hype beforehand, and he didn't have the Senior Bowl. So, including the Senior Bowl, boy, Mafe. Devontae Wyatt, I think, has gotten a lot of good hype, getting him out of that Georgia shadow of Jordan Davis and letting him dominate at the Senior Bowl a little bit. So those 2 guys, I think, rose quite a bit because of the Senior Bowl, because of the Combine. Fallers, Justin Ross didn't test as well as we were hoping. There's going to be medical concerns there with him. So I think that's probably the biggest faller as of right now. I'm trying to think. Really, the only way to fall during the offseason is to test poorly. And I don't know if anybody else tested that poorly that they should drop off. Oh, Roger McCreary's tiny arms. There's another one. The NFL will not respect that.
I threw this out to you guys. I don't remember. It was either before a lab or after a lab that there might be somebody new measuring arms with the combine because there was such a big discrepancy between the Senior Bowl and the combine, which I don't think is that weird of a take because there was somebody new measuring the 40s, timing for 40s. So I think that it's a big possibility that could be an issue. If you look at some of those guys from the Senior Bowl that ended up having short arms at the combine. That's gonna be so. I was gonna say George Karlaftis. He ran a 4.7. I don't think that people really loved that about him, but I don't think that he was, maybe in my eyes, I don't think he was very high already to begin with. So next question here. This is from Laytony 44. What is the best and worst case scenario for you in the first round? I gotta think worst case scenario. I'm gonna start with that one. I think it's going to be probably a linebacker, right? I think that would be pretty darn bad. I mean, but you could talk me into Kobe Dean, I think. I think I could be persuaded into Nakobe Dean, but like a Chad Muma. This is the second time I brought up Chad Muma,
You
but like
don't like Chad Muma, huh?
not in the first round. I don't like Chad Muma. Him, and then I think if you pair it with like, is the only reason I say this because maybe if it's like a Deo Oda, right? Deo Odemingmo. I started thinking about the dude from Vanderbilt last year.
Yeah,
Um,
you did.
I that's who it is, right?
You're giving me a Vanderbilt defensive
Yeah,
lineman from last year right now.
who tore his Achilles
Yeah,
at the
and
end of
then
the
now it's
year.
played for the Colts. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked him last year too. That was weird. My brain just immediately went to him. I'm definitely meant to say um, Ojabo is who I meant to say. Odd. So I think if you pair like a low valued position like linebacker with Ojabo, who won't play the first year, that would be. I hate calling it the worst case scenario, but that's tough for me. That's really tough for me to swallow. Maybe if they drafted a running back too. Oh, if they drafted a running back and a linebacker in the first round, I might scream. But best case scenario, double edge rusher. That's best case.
Okay. Bad worst case scenario. Peter Schrager's mock draft that he released yesterday morning. The Chiefs taking a less valued position like interior defensive lineman and Devontae
Okay.
Wyatt, who I know everybody loves him. To me, I think and I just mentioned him as a riser, but like I think he's a little bit lower ceiling than people are giving him credit for, especially because he's an older player. So he can come in and play right away, but as an older player, I don't know how good he ever gets. And then I think you're seeing it around the NFL. Unless you have Aaron Donald, don't build your defensive line around three techs. Don't do it. Don't build it around interior defensive linemen. It's just not. It doesn't win in the NFL unless you have Aaron Donald. So don't do that. Don't draft him in the first round. But to make it worse, please don't trade your very next pick and trade back out of the first round and take no valuable positions in round one. Like, unless a team is giving you 2 picks in the top 50 to do that, don't do it. Because like you're just sacrificing valuable picks for valuable assets early in a draft when your defense desperately needs star players. You drafted a high floor but moderate ceiling defensive tackle, and then you're just like, okay, now we're not going to chase high ceilings as much anymore because we're getting out of here. Like that would be the worst case. Best case scenario, yeah, double edge rushers, George Pickens falling to pick 29, like him being available then. Maybe. Okay, no, best case scenario that I could see possible. George Pickens falls and Andrew Booth Jr. falls, and the Chiefs take both of them. 2 guys that maybe have working through some injury stuff over the past year. They get both of those guys at the end of the first round that have to trade it up. That'd probably be my best case scenario you could get.
I just was looking ahead on these questions. We might bring that. I might just move this question up to the front just because of the response you just gave. But who is one player that you've seen national media mock to the Chiefs that makes you question that writer's existence?
So I don't question Devontae Wyatt specifically going to the Chiefs. I think there's a lot of smoke for an interior defensive lineman. It's just I really despise it being him over a Winfrey or a Travis Jones, who I think just have the ability to be better down the future. But it's the trading back after doing that really kills me. If you take Ojaba and Wyatt in round 1, fine. I don't love it, but I'm cool with it because I get it. So the player, I'm not aboard the Jahan Dotson hive, and I know a lot of Chiefs fans and a lot of people are. I don't get the Dotson thing. I think he's a slot-only receiver that's really tiny. Physicality really throws him around, so I think he's going to be limited to the slot, and I don't think he really wants to go over the middle of the field with that frame. So, like, I get how he's a quality player. He just, to me, screams middle of round 2, late round 2, because he's like, he's Devonta Smith, but not near as good at any of the same stuff. And like at that size and without being as good, just where can you go in the NFL like that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Nick Deal, he asked, with all the big talk this offseason around wide receiver extensions, what are the chances of Hardman being extended and he extended here as he stands today? And what do you think his mark is like? Do you think people outside of KC look at him more favorably than some Chiefs fans do? Yes, I do think people look at McCole Hardman more favorably than Chiefs fans do. Do I think he gets extended by Kansas City? No, I don't. Not as of today. Maybe he has a really good season next year and kind of forces the Chiefs' hand a little bit. And do I think he'll get paid? I do think he'll get paid by a team, but I don't think it'll be Kansas City Chiefs.
I don't know if I have a lot more to add. I think fans from other teams think that they like him more than Chiefs fans do. Maybe I don't know if the NFL does. Just watching how defenses play him and not respect his literal game-breaking speed that much, not really worry about him too often. I don't know if teams do. I I would be shocked if he is in Kansas City on anything other than a 1-year relatively cheap deal in 2023. If his what he wants in free agency isn't there and he comes back to try to also continue to be that same general role or whatever he does this year, I get it. I would be kind of surprised if they extend him though. Like that one would
Mm.
floor me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you. Here we go. This one's from Fish. In honor of the draft guide rankings, how far would you be willing to trade up for Pickens in round one? Lots of Pickens questions today.
Packers fans and Chiefs fans, per usual, on the same page when it comes to draft prospects, like their teams usually are.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade up. I would not trade anything more than the Poles comp pick at the end of round 3 to go get a wide receiver. I would feel even more comfortable just moving up. Like if Green Bay passes on Pickens with their early pick and then you're just trying to jump them at 28, then okay, fine. But much more than that, I'm not on board. I would rather just sit there because and the way my mind works is if London's gone and Pickens is gone and Traylon Burks is gone, that's all your big receivers. Likely you're either going to get an Olave, you're going to get Garrett Wilson somehow falls, Jameson Williams falls, or if they're all gone too, there's going to be an edge or a corner that falls. Like the amount of names that can go in front of the Chiefs to where they have to trade up to get a receiver just doesn't add up to me right now. So I'm not a fan of trading up for any wide receiver unless it's specifically just to jump Green Bay at 28 or wherever, 27, wherever they pick there.
Yeah, I was just doing a little bit of math, little mental calculation as I was looking at the Jimmy Johnson trade chart. That comp pick plus I think I did the Dolphins pick at 29 is what I did. Added together, it'll get you like 23, which is about as high as I'd be willing to go to. I don't think that they want to go. I don't think they would need to go top 15. I don't think that they'd even need to go top 20. To get a guy that they want. I think 23 is probably that sweet spot right there. They can obviously package other draft picks that they have. I don't want to see them spend a bunch of future draft capital though for a wide receiver. We've had this conversation multiple times, but that's about the highest that I would want to go. If he's still there, I think that's the same thing. I think Jameson Williams, right? If Jameson Williams is still there at 23, I think that's a trade you got to really be thinking about making. And Pickens is one of those guys too. Just DRK asked, how tall is Craig?
Craig is very tall. I'm trying to think like the best way to put it in words. Like I have yet to meet somebody in person who hasn't had to look up to Craig, both as a person, but then also because of how tall he is.
Listen, that's true. That is incredibly true. I'm trying to scroll through the Discord right now and try to find the next question we got here.
Oh, I got a good road. I got two good ones here. Mike Denny, you toss on a 3-button polo. How many buttons are you doing?
Oh, that's a good question. At least I think I only do one. Like I think I let it breathe. I got to do the bottom one because I think if you don't have one button that looks a little sloppy, but like you can have the top 2 unbuttoned, right?
Is it undershirt or no undershirt?
No undershirt. No, I'm not an undershirt guy.
When's the last time you put on a polo?
Dude, it's been a while. Actually, no, it's the golf course in Vegas. This is the last time I put on a polo. It's literally when I go into a golf course, I put on a polo. That's it.
I own one polo shirt, and it's one that I got from Macadoodles, and I wore it.
That's right.
St. Patty's Day. That was it. I have 0 buttons on it because like I don't have one. If I were to wear one to go golf, I'm probably doing 1 or 2 buttons, depends on how tight it fits. We have another follow-up from Just DRK. You toss on a 7-button short sleeve shirt. It's 85 degrees out. How many buttons are you now going with?
7 buttons. I'm probably only doing about 4. Or I do this move right here. Hear me out. You go 4, so you got like midriff. Is that what they call it? Midriff. Or you just go 1 in the middle to keep it together. It's like that's like if I'm at the beach, if I'm at the ocean, if the ocean breeze is coming in, that's what I do. I just do 1 to keep it together. If we're in Kansas City, I gotta kind of polish up a little bit. I do 3 open up top. That's what I go with.
Yeah, I think I'm about the same. It depends on what I'm doing, right? Like if I'm going out to like go get dinner, yeah, like we're talking probably 3 undone at the top. Would be my guess. I mean, I don't know what my short sleeve button up shirts. I don't know how many buttons they have, but like 3 open up top sounds about right. But if I'm going anywhere informal, like to the beach or walking around outside in a short sleeve button up for some reason, like we're going hard, no buttons. Like we're just loose. We're just loose. We're nips out, belly button showing, the whole shebang.
Absolutely. Here's a question to kind of get us back on the Chiefs path. This is from Andy Nagel. Is there a practice squad futures guy from last season you could see making a contribution this season? And Maddie, a follow-up question. Am I crazy for thinking Cornell Powell?
No, you're not crazy. I think that is a quality guess because I don't have a better one necessarily in mind. I'm quickly going back
To the
to
roster.
the roster because I have to pull it back up now. Oh look, they have Darius Stills on the team. Interesting. Okay, Cortez Broughton, defensive lineman. He came out of Maryland. I forget where he was with the Chiefs before the Chiefs. Maybe with the Chargers or something. Only played a couple games. I liked him coming out of Maryland. A lot of effort, an effort guy on the interior. Chiefs got to replace like 700 snaps from Jaron Reed. I know Taylor Stallworth helps that. Derek Nottie being healthy helps that. Maybe Colin Saunders gets more run, but they got to replace a lot of snaps along the defensive line right now. So I'm just picking him right now because I think that's where they've lost the most snaps they haven't replenished.
Did Derek Nutty resign, right? That
He
happened.
Did. Your deal.
Okay.
So hopefully he plays more this year. Like that's the thought.
Yeah. I just couldn't remember if I made that up in my head or if that actually happened. Because that sometimes does happen. Bo 2500. He asked cornerbacks. There's more to the question. I just wanted to say that part. Legit free agency bid on the garbage pile that is left, or draft 2 and hope for the best. Here's what you draft 2, but then you also sign Stephon Gilmore. So you have to do.
What are you paying Gilmore? If that's the route you're going, what is your ceiling on what you're going to pay Gilmore? Like your absolute hard out that you say nope.
That's a good question. I'm not very good at APY or like markets in general or just money in general. I think that like you could get away with like I just said like too much there. Maybe 10 mil. Is 10 mil too much?
Ooh, you're coming close to his asking price.
Man of the people.
Look at you.
Be an agent.
Okay. I think 8 is where I walk away, and that's quite a bit lower than what he wants. I mean, that's like, I don't know, what, 3/4 of what he's trying to ask for. Like I'm giving him 2/3 of what he's trying to ask for. Like I think he's asking for 12 to 13. I'm hard out at 8. I'm not going above 8, but I'm probably starting at like 5 with incentives to 8, maybe 6. I'm gonna hardball it. I think that's what Veach would do too. He's big on these incentive deals for these one-year veteran guys. So like that's the way I think the Chiefs would be trying to go. That's the way I'd go with it. I'm not giving him above 8 though, because like I said earlier, I don't want to not roll over money in the next year that isn't going to move the needle. And I think Stephon Gilmore is your best option to add at a corner, even over trading for James Bradbury.
Yeah.
I just don't know how much of the needle he's going to move. So like get it with incentives so he doesn't automatically eat into your cap if he doesn't turn out like, and just, I'm not going over 8.
That's fair. And I think that for like, you're paying for a name at that point with Stephon Gilmore, right? I think it's at some point you're paying for the brand. It happens a lot of places, but Rudy asked this, which of the following position groups should the Chiefs realistically double dip in for the following draft? Cornerback, edge, wide receiver, all of them. I don't think that's crazy for me to say they should double dip in all of them. I know it's not very common to double dip in the draft, but I think they should. I think they should double dip in absolutely all of them.
I would say edge is the most prominent one they should get 2 guys in because the cornerback room is probably the most bare, but the Chiefs always have a pretty bare cornerback room. Like it's never that good at the top end or that deep. Defensive end is an area that I think they need top end talent and some depth to make it work. So like I would say, and there's not a lot of free agents left at defensive end. They've done enough at the wide receiver spot that I think they might be able to get away with only 1 early draft pick and then hoping some of these other guys turn out. It's like a defensive end first of that group.
Yeah, I'm with you here. Okay, let's see here. I did the same thing where I accidentally scrolled to the top of the page and I didn't mean to do that. But what I'm going to ask you is, do you think KC goes into draft day with both 29 and 30 overall, Maddie?
goes into draft day with yes. I think they want 2 first-round picks. I think they're looking around to see what they can trade for with using one or hopefully not 2, but at least one of those and some picks. But unless a deal is like just a home run for them, I think they really do want 2 first-round picks as the draft gets going. I think they want to make 2 first-round picks, but if something comes up where they need to trade around and only end up making one, they will. But they want to go into it with those 2 picks.
I'm convincing myself that they're going to get rid of them and not have them, but I want them to have them. That's kind of the way that I'm working here. Rugby Fox asks a fun one, out of the box, but humor me. Would you sign Tyron on a 1-year prove it deal to play slot corner and push Snead outside? Would I do that? Yeah. Would he? Absolutely not. I think that's kind of the answer there.
I would sign him on a 1-year deal. I the last time Tyron played slot corner, his age showed a little bit. He looked like he lost a step, so I didn't love it. I would rather just have him play safety and figure it out from there. But getting a real slot corner to move Snead outside or bringing back Tyron Matthew on a 1-year deal, then yeah, let's go. All right, Tuck, pick one more question out of this group. And then I got to get out of here, guys. I'm doing a film room right after this.
True.
So I think we're right around 21 questions. I'm going to let Tuck pick one more. But if he can't find it, I mean, I think I got one, actually.
No, I got it picked out. I knew this was going to be the last one.
Okay.
And this is for you. What's your plan to get Tucker to quit drinking the hard seltzers and drinking good alcohol? That's from Tucker's burner account.
Okay, so number one, that was the question I was going to pick too. Number two, I'm never going to have Tucker stop drinking hard seltzers. Hard seltzers are delicious, guys. Like, I don't know if you haven't heard this story. Like, I was in Miami when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Maddie had a lot of hard seltzers during the Super Bowl that year. That resulted in him running through the parking lot for a little bit, yelling on the phone to Kent and Craig about what had just happened. So, like, I will never tell someone not to drink a hard seltzer. It's a great, especially it's getting hot out. Like, I love me some good, liquor, but the hard seltzer hits right when it starts to get warm out.
Does indeed. After we get off with this call, Maddie's going to go do a film room. I am going to go chug a hard seltzer and put it on TikTok. So that's just the life that we live. Maddie, thank you for joining me for this 21 questions. Thank you to everybody who asked questions. We probably answered more than 21, I think. I don't know. I wasn't counting, but make sure to drop those questions into the Discord. Want access to the Discord? Subscribe to the KCSN Substack. You get access to the KCSN Discord. Also, you want access to it, you can go buy the KCSN draft guide. It gives you 6 months. There's a couple options you can get to buying the KCSN draft guide. You got gum.co/KCSN22. You can go check that out. That's off the dome too, so you guys better be stoked on that. So that'll do it for us. We will catch you guys again next week with 21 questions. See you later.